2012 AP Micro FRQ number 3. This is a tariff question, world price tariff. Sugar's freely traded. Whoa, let's fix that. Freely traded in the world market. They're a price taker. The world price of sugar is $2. We can see that. PW. At the world price of $2 per pound, how much sugar is Laura Land importing? Well, originally, with no world trade at all, the price was $5 and the quantity was 8. Our domestic producers or suppliers would supply 8 of it at that equilibrium price. But then when these guys start trading with the world, obviously cheap goods come into the country, sugar, and the price falls from $5 down to $2. At this $2 price, our domestic suppliers will only supply 2 million pounds of it. But our consumers would love to have 14 million at that cheap price. So the difference of 12 million is what's imported. Suppose that Laura Land imposes a per unit tariff on sugar imports and the new price, including the tariff, is $4. So now we have a new price with the tariff. Identify the new level of domestic production. Well, as the price goes back up, tick, 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 our domestic suppliers will supply 6 million of it. Calculate the domestic consumer surplus. Now, this is always a bit tricky because we're just not used to seeing this. But understand that at this tariff price of $4 with the tariff, 10 million will be demanded by our consumers and 6 million will be supplied by our suppliers. So the difference is made up in 4 million of imports. We'll talk about that in just a second. But recognize that the consumer surplus is all of this area here. We talk about consumer surpluses as everything above the price, but below the demand curve, right? Everything above the price, but below the demand curve. All of that is consumer surplus. So it's got a height of 5. It's got a base of 10. 5 times 10 divided by 2. So it's just the area of a triangle. Right? The area of that triangle equals 1/2 base times height. Our height is 5, our base is 10, times divided by 2 should give us 25, I think. Yeah, consumer surplus, got it. And make sure you show your work, right? So 5, 10 divided by 2, however you can do it. Total tariff revenue collected by the government. Now, we figured out that at this new higher $4 price, there's 4 million pounds of sugar being imported. We have to recognize that the tariff kicked up. The tariff was $2. The original price was $2. With the tariff, it went up to $4. So our tariff is $2, 4 million. And tariffs are only taxes. We think of tariffs as being a tax on imports. So the understanding here is that as the tariff, the $2, times the amount of good that comes into our country, or the import, obviously would give the government $8 million of revenue. All right. Consumer surplus would be dollars, 6 million pounds here. Given the world price of $2, what per unit tariff maximizes the sum of Laura Land's domestic consumer and producer surplus? Now, they're only going to trick you with this one time. You will never be tricked again, but this is a hard question to sort of understand. I just want to back out for a second and say that if you can recognize over here that when the supply and demand equal one another at that price and that quantity, right? This is where consumer surplus and producer surplus is maximized, where equilibrium is. But remember, we're not only trading with our country, we're trading with the world. right? So recognize that originally, before there was any trade with the world, that this was consumer and producer surplus. Right there at that equilibrium, that would have all been consumer, that would have been all been producer. Recognize that when we start trading with the world, that this changes, and in essence, all of this becomes consumer surplus. Look at how much larger that is, right? And what we know is that our producer surplus is just as tiny. Our domestic producer surplus is that tiny little triangle right there. But recognize that consumer surplus has gained. Let's do it a different color. Consumer surplus has gained all of this extra amount. So when they say what maximizing the sum of consumer and producer surplus, it has to be that no tariff and having that world price at $2 is where consumer and producer, this would be our net gain right here from dealing with the world. We have, obviously, our producers, our domestic producers lost, but our consumers won by so much more that we just say zero tariffs, again, would maximize consumer and producer surplus. All right, zero tariffs. Thanks, guys. Be safe. Bye.